Turning to our other top story tonight, and it's kind of a doozy. There was a man who you may remember who actually, it turned out, kicked off the entire Russia probe. He was a Trump aide, but not one everyone had heard of. His name, George Papadopoulos, has become well known now, and he ultimately pled guilty and was cooperating with Bob Mueller and was going to be sentenced next month. I use all of that terminology of was because now his wife is saying she wants him to scrap the plea deal with Mueller. In fact, she's given us here at The Beat from our reporting an exclusive news statement tonight. Simona Mangiante saying, I trusted these institutions until they proved me wrong. She says there were shady individuals that targeted George Papadopoulos with a specific agenda. And now she says there is exculpatory evidence that would fully justify him to drop the plea agreement that he reached with Bob Mueller. Now, this is, to say the least, unusual. Cooperating witnesses who've pled guilty in federal cases don't, first of all, try to undo the cooperation agreement they got at the last minute. Second of all, it's not an easy thing to do it, even if they want to. Now, Simona had also told us previously they viewed the entire thing, the way they were treated by Mueller's team, as fair.
The situation was clearly intimidating, but they were very professional, very fair. I never felt aggressed in any way.
You thought Bob Mueller's investigators were fair?
Yes, they were, really.
That is, of course, the wife of George Papadopoulos, who's a central figure. The New York Times had first broken open the story by explaining that Papadopoulos was talking to an Australian diplomat who had dirt on Hillary Clinton, and that kicked off the FBI probe in full. Papadopoulos served on Trump's foreign policy board. He had a literal seat at the table. His indictment was a bombshell.
The separate plea bargain deal made public today between the feds and a former Trump campaign advisor,
admitting he lied to the FBI by denying that he was involved with the campaign when he communicated with the Russians.
In the Papadopoulos statement of the offense, he very carefully attests to all of that stuff as fact.
Federal prosecutor Joyce Vance is here. This is certainly unusual, and we wouldn't deal with it so seriously if it were a rumor or from an unnamed source, but this is an on-the-record plea from his wife. Your view?
She goes right to the heart of the matter when she says he wants to withdraw his plea because there's exculpatory material. That means material that would tend to establish that he's not guilty. But the rules surrounding this idea of a defendant who has already pled guilty withdrawing his plea is that courts only very rarely permit it. They'll permit it if a defendant's guilty plea wasn't voluntary or if there's some other justice and fairness component that was violated. So here, Papadopoulos would have to come forward and convince a court that there was exculpatory information that was specific to his plea of guilt. He pled guilty to making a false statement to the FBI. So he would have to convince a judge either it wasn't voluntary or there's something that was wrong with that guilty plea. That's going to be tough to do here. I think it's unlikely that he'll be able to substantiate that very high burden.
So you're saying that while this is fascinating, it would be a very high bar to get it done. I would note that both Papadopoulos, who obviously was literally working with these agents in Mueller to give up all the info, and his wife, who has spoken out, and she's sort of been his public spokesperson, had previously said cooperation's the way to go, and she'd encourage others to do it. Take a look.
Until the moment of the interview, I could not understand myself the relevance of my contribution. The FBI and the prosecutor have certainly a biggest picture to which we can contribute, being truthful. So I was happy to cooperate, and either or not he thinks his contribution is going to be significant, it's something you have to do for your country.
Something she said they were doing for her country. I should mention she and Papadopoulos both have spoken to FBI agents as part of the Mueller probe. Is it possible that learning more information has made Papadopoulos feel that he gave up too quickly? Because one of the theories here is that the type of stuff he was hearing about wasn't really real. That is to say, wasn't coming necessarily from all the way to the Kremlin, even though he may have actually literally misled the FBI at a later point in the chain of events.
Hard to know for sure what's actually in his mind. Important to remember that his crime is lying to the FBI. So if he made a material misstatement of fact without regard to where the information came from, in actuality, he's likely guilty of that crime. But the real problem for Papadopoulos, Ari, is withdrawing his plea, even if the court lets him do it, doesn't put him in a much better position. It just presents him with the binary choice: plead guilty again, maybe try to get a better deal, or go to trial and see if you can actually roll the bones and successfully avoid a conviction. Not a great outlook for Papadopoulos either way.
Right. Your analysis is very helpful to us, teaching us it is a very high bar, but if a judge was sympathetic, he would be then in the Manafort position, going through one of these federal trials and rolling the dice on a case that could bring him several years in prison. Thank you, as always, Joyce Vance. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.